Hey guys, welcome back. So I went through my piece here and I've cleaned up almost all of my line. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in here, and I tried to leave a couple sections out. I didn't put any roof tile in right now up here because I'm not quite sure exactly what I want to have, and I'm always afraid if I put too much of something, it'll become too overbearing with too much detail. So I sort of save that for the end. What I'm going to do is put just a couple of trace lines of where some of those roof tiles would be, sort of matching up to some of the perspective. And I have some distortion happening in there, which is fine. And so I basically, blocked everything out here. I'm going to come in, and there's a couple little areas that I might add some little details. I'm going to thicken thin a couple little of the side lines here to push some of the shapes a little bit more, especially in some of the silhouettes. The outside exterior lines that I want to be a little bit more heavier. So I'm going to come in here and you'll notice I have a couple little, you might not notice this, I have a little mistake here. I'm going to take my electric eraser and try to hit that. It's just when I dropped the pen once, and no big deal. There, it's not the end of the world. To me, that's what I call a happy mistake. Okay, come in here and hit a couple of these other edges. To break some of this up. Okay, that's pretty cool. Okay. So, I like the way that's looking right there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in and hit it with some markers real quick, just to sort of demonstrate for you. And I'm going to put a couple tiles on the sky here. There, that's pretty cool. That works. Get that side in there. And I have some interior stairs coming down from up here inside there. So again, for a rough concept sketch, it's pretty cool. I like what's going on with it. I'm going to come in here and put a couple interior lines, and let me darken up this outside line here. Okay, and I'm just going to go ahead and take a ruler and just really lightly sort of put a couple lines right through there. Gonna have them a little off kilt so they look like they're different pieces of wood maybe. That's pretty cool. Old wood details or something. Right, like that. And I put this shape in here and I never put anything on it. So I'll worry about that later at the end here. So before I jump into light here, let me zoom in here. I just wanted to show you what the line looks like. Okay. Thick and thin, try to keep the interior lines a lot smaller. Sometimes if I have a tremendous amount of detail, what I do is I come back with a micron Pigma, and let me see if I have my 0.5 here. I don't. 0.05. I have a 2 here, and if I come back with this 2, it gets really nice thin lines for the interior here. And this is a good way that I could come back and pencil in some roof tile towards the end. Let me make a row here of shingles. Again, sort of distorted a little bit of character in there. There, like that. Okay? Alright. And I'm trying to think what else I want to do, if anything. A couple little interior lines in there, maybe. I want to drop a line too off the back here, so it makes it look like there's this wall is going down behind this this roof here. Maybe I was even had the thought of putting stairs back there, but then it can get maybe just a couple like this, just a little bit, so it looks like there's maybe something back there. And maybe I'll put a little bit of stone edging in there or something. Just really lightly using this too. Okay, and I never finished defining this little edge in here. There, that's pretty good. Come back, thicken this line up in here a little. Like that. Notice I'm just putting a couple bricks for detail here, here, and here. That way it sort of spreads it out so it's not everywhere. So now let's talk about getting in here and throwing in some rough value with my markers. So what I did is I did a quick overlay like this for you on another pad here. And I did this just to show you a rough idea of what I was thinking about for light here. I originally thought of having light coming in. This is pretty common. We'll discuss this in the next lecture. We'll talk about lighting and the direction of light. I thought about having light coming in. This is a lot of times in scenes you'll see what's called a lighting arrow, and this is exactly what a lighting arrow looks like here. It's basically indicating the direction of the light. So this would be coming from the front, sort of at an upper 3/4 down shot, versus if I had light coming from this direction, from the side here, it might look like this. Okay, and if I have light that's going to be coming in behind, my light arrow is going to look like this. All right, but we'll cover this in more detail in the next lecture. That way, that's important for me to know because I have to have an understanding of how shadows are casting and what's getting lit. So, but for right now, I was thinking of having the light coming in this way, but then it's going to be hitting the window and might be a little too bright. So I think what I'm going to do instead is just to do a real quick rough for you. I'm going to have light coming in. I'm going to ixnay this option and have this option right here. And I'm not going to have it, so it's going to be coming from a side angle, reading from left to right. So what I'll end up having, if I come in here and start to hit some of this with shadow right here. Oops, let me shut my window. There's a helicopter flying above. That's annoying. Here we go. And if I drop in a little bit of shadow here, you can see, have a better idea of lights hitting the left, and I'll have shadows on the right of my object. So again, what I need to do is basically break down my thought process here and think of my elements as if they were cubes. Back to basic drawing, okay? And then once I get this happening in here, you can see I'm starting to get some form and some shape. That could feel pretty cool. I could even come in and touch in a little bit of highlights on the window panes for glass. That's why I sort of wanted to go with this method here. So I just wanted to show you that as just a quick demo. I mean, that's just an extra piece of paper. It took a couple minutes, and it helps me solidify some ideas. Okay. Now that that's done, let me come over to my piece here, and I'll start blocking in some of those same values in here. Okay. So I'm going to start right here in the middle and sort of work my way out. Oh, you know, the one thing I didn't do, which I was going to tell you, these pads can be a little pricey sometimes. It's in your best interest to take a scrap piece of paper. So here's I have some scrap 11 by 17 paper here, and I'm actually going to slide it underneath, okay, my image here. I'm doing this because if there is any bleed from the markers, that marker ink will bleed down into this paper and not into my pad, ruining a sheet of expensive paper. Especially there's some vellums that are really expensive that I use for different clients, and so I don't want to ever ruin a piece of paper from my negligence and not thinking about that. So now I'm going to come in here, basically, again, light's coming, okay, from the left. Let me see if I can zoom in here a little bit for you so you can see exactly what I'm working on. And I come in here, right now I'm working with a 20% grade. I'm using a warm gray, which is just a personal favorite. I like the warms, I also like the cools, but I've noticed I find myself using the warms quite a bit. Okay. Now the thing about markers is that the grade I'm putting down, it's going to change. Once this dries and settles, it starts to loosen up a little bit, okay? And it will actually drop another 10% or so in value, okay? So that's important to know because it sort of affects the overall look of my objects, okay? So it's important not to get, you know, when you're throwing down your tones, if you want to go dark real quick, let it dry and then come back and throw in a darker layer after the markers have dried completely, okay? So lights are coming left, so I'm going to have shadow on the right-hand side of things here. I'm going to make sure I'm just hitting the shadow area of my objects. And I might cheat some of this right in here and have a shadow like casting over and across some of it like that. And so the back of this wall here is going to have some marker on it. And the underneath of my roof overhang. Okay. Put a little line across there for where I know there's going to be a little bit of shadow from the overhang of the roof there. Okay. And there might be a little bit of a shadow casting across there. I'll figure that in a little bit. Okay, make sure you can see how this is progressing here. And I'm going to have, when I really get into this, I tend to find just coming in and punching and being quick with markers, you start to get a more of a natural feel of how things should sort of look. And you can be a little bit more successful sometimes by doing that than going in and worrying about exactly where the shadow is. You get a little bit of roughness inside your sketch, and I find that communicates a little bit easier. I'm going to go ahead and take a liberty here, and I'm going to throw in a light grade of 2 on some of this ground hay and dirt down here, and I'll come back and punch some of that up a little bit later. So around the rocks here, some of this wall, down here on the base where it meets, a little bit up in here, and I'm going to get the bottom of the walkways here, give it some depth. Okay. Hit the right side of some of my rocks that I've came in and started to place in here. Okay, it's pretty cool. I like where that's going. What did I end up? I never finished this area back here. Let me come in and sketch a little bit of this here. Put any exterior rocks or figured that out. I was going there, so that's pretty cool. I should let it dry. It's going to smear a little bit, but that's all right. Remember, sometimes when I'm doing these, you know, I'm limited by time. I'm slowing down a little bit here for you guys, but if I was cranking this out for a client, I'd be moving as fast as I can to save myself time in here. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and darken the inside of that window frame in there. And I have a couple little side details on here that I want to address in my piece here. And let me come over here real quick and sort of punch in the other side of this road here. Just keep it sort of rough and loose like that. Okay, that's pretty good. All right. So what I'm going to do now is I have a couple other warm grays here. Let me grab a couple out of my marker bag. And I want to get exactly like a nice sort of 40-60 with a fine point. And that's where sometimes I come back either the Copic or I don't have my Copics with me, or a Prismacolor marker here. So I have some different warms here. And what I'm going to do, I have a 60 and 80. I'm going to take this 40 right here. And I'm going to take the fine point side right here and see if I can't darken a couple edges in here. I can actually speed this up. I have a couple underlining shadow areas, and I'm going to go ahead and punch up the back side of some of this wall structure in here. Okay. And I can also then come back and put this on, sort of acting as like a secondary coat to some of this. So once I take this and go over some of my other current markers down here, it's going to pop it up and make the gradation get a little bit darker from the start. All right. That's pretty cool. Do that beam right there. And go ahead and pencil in, even though light's hitting this, I'm going to pencil in. There's a couple of things I know, like I know my roof, roof tiles are usually darker. I want my flags to be a little bit darker. Anything hanging, breaking some of the silhouette, I'm going to have a little bit darker so it looks a little bit more interesting. Okay. Then what I do once I get to about this point is I like to come in here, I sort of step away for a couple minutes and take a look and see how my piece is feeling. Okay. And so what I do to step away from it real quick is I need to stand up and walk about 5-6 feet away. This is something really important for artists to do, especially if you're working digitally. You want to be able to stand up and look at your piece from a distance and see where you're at. Okay. So let me, I'm going to have some of this in shadow back here. I forgot I have some of my chimney back here. I have the side of this building. Okay, the roof line here. And have some of this also in the back here. And I have this overhang rag or cloth. Don't ask why. I just thought I'd put it in there. That'd be cool. Go ahead and punch some of that up a little bit. Okay. There. And so I'm going to step back for a minute here, and then I'm going to come back and take a look and see where I'm at with this. Oh, my door here is going to be in shadow too. Forgot to hit some of that area. Okay, so let me stand up and take a look at my piece, see where I'm going with this. And I think I think I'm just going to punch up a couple darks and then I'll leave it alone. But it helps for me just to stand up and get a good feel. Let me zoom out a teeny bit from here and show you where I'm at right now. Okay. So now I'm going to come back in and I'm going to take, I have a 40% now. I'm going to start to darken a couple areas that I know are going to be a little bit darker. Some of the overhangs here, casting down, and this will help separate a little bit more variation for me. Okay. Darken this cloth shape in here. And if you're worried about your marker blending a little bit, what you can do is take your 20, and at the same time as you put that down, you come back and sort of blend it in a little bit. That'll give you a nice way to get some dark blended in with some light really nicely. just like anything else, guys, over time this just takes a little bit of time getting it mapped down the way that you like. I have quite a few highlights in here, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take a lighter gray. I believe I still have my 10% here somewhere. Let me find it for you. And I'm going to hit some of the roof tiles there because I don't want those to be that white of highlights. It's a little too bright for me. So coming in here, this marker is dying a little bit, but it's about a 20% grade. Get a little bit of light color in there so it's not pure white. Just to punch that roof up a little bit. Where's one of my other ones? There we go. What was that one? That was my 50. Okay, cool. Come back in here and keep pushing up some of the sides in here. Second coat. Go ahead and knock down my highs a little bit. And then what I could do at the very end is I come in with a little bit of gouache paint, a little bit of white, or if it's not white, I can even take actually any type of opaque based white paint, and I could use that to throw some highlights in there. Okay, and let's see what else here. I have a couple of darks. I'm going to throw in some darks here. I have a really dark warm gray here. I want to pencil in some of this little detail that's hanging out the window here. This guy that's overhanging, I want to pencil in that flag to make it pop out. Right in there. Same thing here. I have this little overhang guy. I'm going to come in, hit that. And here are some of my other flags in here. Got a little overhang in here. Okay, get the back side of these. This marker is on its way out. Let me hit another a little bit darker grade here. Back side of those beams right there that are going to be in shadow. Okay. All right. Okay, I'm going to zoom in here a little bit, and I'm going to hit my windows with a little bit of some darks. Right in here, I have these dark window panes. That'll help pop my window, which is pretty much like a good center of interest and focal point for my piece. And then what I'll do is I'll come back with a little bit of white and hit a little bit of highlight on that glass there. Okay, that's pretty cool. Okay, that's working for me too. There we go. All right, put a couple of streaks in the glass there. And I'm going to come back with my 20 and knock down my roof tiles a little bit. They're still really white, and they're a little bit too white for me. So this is how I'm going to knock them down. I'm just going to sort of come in here and go make a one-time pass on them. And I can come back later and pencil in a couple tiles if I want. Where's my 40? I'm going to darken the inside of these windows here. Put a little bit of window thickness in there and make it look like there's something inside with a line or two. Okay, now that I got that done, I'm going to come back and punch up a little bit of the interior in there. Okay. A little bit of the backside in there too. Come in and just hit a couple little areas. So atmospheric perspective, right? I'll be talking about that a little bit later with you guys. Atmospheric perspective is as things recede away from you, they get lighter. Okay, that's the golden rule. So if I have a shape overlapping here, I'm going to make sure it's a little bit darker. Here's this gate I had up in the front here. And let me come in and hit this with, punch up that value a little bit like this. I'm going to come back in and see if I can't punch up some sides of my rocks. Some other little details in here. And again, blend it in with my 20, sort of in my other hand at the same time. Try to get the back side of some of these rocks in here. Just a couple little... They also sell blenders, which are really useful. Blenders allow you to get in there and blend a little bit between values. So if I come in here on this corner right here and punch this up a little bit, see, then I could come back then and I could drop this in and I could blend it a little bit with my 20. But a blender is basically like a marker without the pigment in it, and it allows you to do that and get some nice little gradations in there. Okay. This can be very useful for quick sketching. Again, I have something else inside here. Okay. And I think one of the next things I'm going to do is I'm going to frame up this piece and then put a foreground element or two in here and darken those to really pop some of my composition. Let me go ahead and pull out here and sort of show you where I'm at right now, what I have. And okay, so let me go ahead. I'm going to take a blue pencil here, and just to save us a little bit of time, I'm going to go ahead and draw this frame around my piece. And if you want, I'll let you watch for a little bit here. This is pretty much what I'm going to do, is square it off here and get a little bit of a light sketch in here, and I think I can frame it right in here. And the reason why I want to do this, I want to put a couple foreground elements in the front there that are going to be darker, that'll really help push some of the depth in my piece. Okay. Alright, that's pretty good. About there. Okay, and I'll even trim up the top a teeny bit here. Alright, and maybe down a little bit lower so you guys can see it a little. It's not too high. Make sure that line's squared up. That's pretty good. Okay, and what I'll do real quick is, just to hit this real fast, is I'm going to take I have a big thick Sharpie here, and I was looking for one of my other rulers, my metal edged ruler that I could hit it with, and I can't seem to find it, so I guess I'll just use this guy right here. And I'm going to come along and sort of just draw in a rough line in here. It's more definitive to lock in my composition. Okay, let me come in here on this side here. Okay, that's pretty cool. There we go. Okay. And what I'm going to do real quick is a trick I learned. Whenever you hit your ruler with pen or markers, you hit it with a Kleenex like this, and it pulls up all the black ink off of there. If you don't do that right away and you keep drawing, that black ink will transfer to your paper. So just having a Kleenex, I always have a big box of Kleenexes where I'm working, and that way I can go over any rulers or other items, and I can look at that, all that black that I just pulled out of there. Okay, that would be coming right onto my paper, and once I go back into it. Okay, and so let me see, foreground elements. I thought what I do here is maybe I'll put like part of a tree and a sign Maybe I'll put a sign up here in the front that's leading us in, and over here maybe I'll put a couple more rocks in there. So give me a second, and I have that pretty framed up to fit in our composition there. Give me a second, and I'll draw that in for you, and then I'll pen it in just to save us a couple minutes, and I'll come back and we'll finish this piece up, and then we'll put some highlights in there. All right, and be right back. Okay, I came in here and sketched in a couple foreground elements here. I put a little bit of a fence here, and what I'm going to do now is come in and really knock these up a lot darker because they're going to be in the foreground here. So I'm going to come in and hit these with a 60 grade and a 40. Okay, let me find my other 40. There it is. So I'm just going to sort of come in here, really punch these up. These are going to be overlapping shapes in here. It helped me establish a little bit more depth. I didn't have to do this. I could have left the piece the way it was, but just typical me. It's the way I work sometimes. I got to have something in there that helps me push some other environmental detail. Okay. There we go. So I like that. That's pretty cool. And then I put a couple of rock shapes in here. Make sure you guys can see this right here on the side. Have some rock shapes elevated with like a tree sort of growing on the top of it over here on the side, and I'm just going to come in and punch that up as well. Okay, same thing on the side. I got this tree. Started sketching in here. Okay, it's pretty cool, like that. And then I'm going to take my original 20 that I had and continue bringing this underneath some of the fence right here. Like that. So it looks like they're just coming underneath. Okay? And I think that's about it. I think I might just come in, and sometimes when you hit markers on there, it has a tendency to dull down some of your line. So I'm going to come in and make sure some of that fence line is pushed a little bit. So I've hit most of that with 40. I'm going to come under and put little 60 backdrop of shadow on some of this. And I'm going to let it dry. I'm going to step away for a couple minutes and see how it's starting to look. Okay. Cool. You know, I just realized looking at this, I could also come in here and I could put a secondary piece of wood down here on the bottom. That marker's starting to die on me. Just in here like this. Just to give a little bit more to that fence. Just like that. And I'm going to pop that with my 60 again. Where is it? I threw it right there. Just helps me frame up my piece a little bit more. And you'll notice some of the, I have some of these pieces of wood angled, pointing us into the composition there. which is fine. Okay. Cool. All right, let me just step out side of this and just want to step back about 5 feet, look at it. It's pretty cool. I'm going to come in, punch some highlights in there. I might come in and start to pencil in a couple indications of some roof tiles in here, just to give it a little bit more detail. Because if I put this detail right in here, is where I'm going to have your eye. We'll be punching right up in here. So I'm going to see if I can't pencil some of this in and get some cool line work in there. That's looking pretty cool. I like that a lot. It starts to really pop that roof tile. Let me see if I can zoom in there for you. Okay, I'm going to come in here and throw some of that tile in here as well. Awesome. I might even come in now and hit this in some areas with a little bit of marker, a little bit of 60 marker on it to punch it a little bit. That's cool. And then I got this guy here in the front here. See if I can get a couple good tiles on there, matching a right angle perspective. I have a couple, one thicker, one a little bit thinner, sort of overlapping in the right shape. Sorry, I just realized I pulled my paper down a little bit. My bad there. I apologize for that. There you go. So those little bits of detail tend to be a nice place to keep your eye focused in. I'm going to put in a little bit of wood slats coming down here. Okay, zoom back out there a little bit. All right, cool. Starting to come alight. So let me step back again and take a quick look at it. See where I'm going. The sky. What I could do real quick is I could hit this and put a light 20 in here and blend it down. I could put a cloud or two, but then I feel like I'm getting too much involved into it. For a quick concept piece, if I was working on I was working on a show like this where we had like an entry way to an old, it was an old ruined castle, and the character had to walk in here. This is sort of similar to what my other sketch was, but this is obviously me at home, so the studios own no rights to it. But anyway, let me just pause this for a second and then come right back and let this dry. Try to keep this as light as possible in here, but I have this cloud structure. It could be cool coming sort of behind part of this house here. Getting a little bit more stylized now, but that's okay. So you can see there I have some rough clouds sort of placed in. And what I'm going to do now is erase the sketch that's down there, the blue pencil sketch, okay? I'm going to take that off. Oops, smudged a little bit of the ink there. I should let it dry all the way. That's all right. It's not too noticeable. Come down here. So what type of eraser am I using right now? A white Staedtler plastic eraser made in Germany. They're fantastic. A bunch of great products from Germany. So what I'm going to do now, this is a technique that sometimes you can buy marker inks in little containers like this, and it's the ink itself. And what I'm going to do is take a cotton ball and go back, take a 20% grade, and I'm going to come in here and put some of the sky, but I'm going to make sure I go around the clouds. So this is how I do it, okay? I'm going to take this right here and off to the side here, pour some 20 on it. Okay, and there, and I have my 20. Now I'm going to come in here and just sort of lightly come in here and pencil around some of the cloud here. Okay, like this. It's basically making a big fat marker, but what's nice, I can get a nice soft, easy gradation from the effect of the cloud here. Okay. And as this ink starts to dry a little bit, I'm going to see if I can't fade some of this into the background here. Like that. Okay. It's pretty cool. Like that. I'm going to try to blend in a little bit of this here. Get a little bit of the edges up here. So now I'm going over some of this. I'm smearing a little bit of that Sharpie. I forgot that Sharpie, these particular markers don't work too good with Sharpies. So that's all right. So I have that down in there like that for right now. And going to let it dry for a second. While it's drying here, I'm going to come back in with a little bit of a 20 and see if I can't darken up some of this back up here around the clouds. Have a little bit of a gradation coming down towards the ground here. You know what? I forgot I used a Sharpie to clean up that border. I should have used a one of my big fat micron Pigmas. Okay. Yeah. And I'm going to come back in and I'm going to put a little bit of 40 in there in a second. I like that blend coming down here. Let me see if I can smear a little. What I didn't like is I got a little bit of black in there and it's changing the color of the marker just a teeny bit. Let's see what I can get in there. So I put a little bit more on there, and now I'm going to come in and see if I can't get around that cloud a little bit better. Okay. Darken some of that up. And then I'm going to hit a little bit of the cloud here really lightly and fast like this. And I'll come back and throw a little bit of white with some gouache paint under the base of the cloud. Just really quickly like that. I'm going to work on getting that gradation flowing from top to bottom and up there. Okay. That's feeling pretty cool. Okay. And now what I'm going to do is I have some white gouache paint here. It's a simple white paint. And what I do at the very end on a drawing is I use this as for highlights. So I'm going to come in here and squeeze a little bit on my tray and then take a little bit of water and touch up a little bit of highlights into the cloud. So what's cool is I have a little bit of a light gradation coming in here. You know, I can push that gradation up. I wanted to push it up just a teeny bit with a 40. So let me do that really fast while you guys are watching here. I'm going to take my 40 here, and then I got my 20 I'm going to use as a blender. I'm going to come across some of this up here with my 40, and then right after I hit that, I'm going to blend some of it in with a 20 like this. Try to make it a little bit darker on the top, coming down, okay? Same thing right here, a little bit of 40, and then come in with a little bit of 20. And get this blended in here pretty good. Makes the clouds pop out a little bit more. Sets a little bit more of a mood for it. Okay, same thing here, 40 first. Blend in now, a little bit of a 20 coming down. Just like that. Okay, and let me get some of that gouache out really quick. Just trying to get this gouache to come. I think it was jammed in there a little bit. Okay, if you can see that, it might be a little blown out to see with the camera, but I have a little bit of gouache in there, and I'm going to take a little bit of white highlight. This is something I learned from an advertising guy when he used to do marker comps. He said at the very end he would come back in with a little bit of gouache, and he would punch a couple areas. So that's exactly what I do sometimes on my work. I find it really handy that if I lose a white on a marker, if you see like right up in here, I can come back and punch in a little bit on that cloud right there and get a nice little variation. And then I just take the Kleenex and sort of spread it across a little like so. Okay, and I get a little bit more of a highlight back there. Same thing in here. Gets a nice little feathered approach. Okay. Some of you know a technique called dry brush. Dry brush is when you don't have any water, you just take like base pigment and you come across and you smear it on part of an image. I do that too sometimes with this little technique. Trying to create that basic cloud base there. That's pretty cool. And I can hit some of that in there with a marker in a couple minutes. And I had a little bit here behind the house too. Oops, a little bit of the black on there, that's all right. So I have some of my white, I'm not quite 100% opaque because I have some of it blended with a little bit of water that I put on there. Okay, and if it gets too, like that gets a little bright there, I just take my little Kleenex here and touch it as I put it down, and it dries it pretty instantaneously. Okay, then I go back to some of the opaque side and I can come in and punch up a couple of my whites in there for my clouds. Okay, same thing here. So you sort of develop your own techniques and work. You know, I've always been an artist that picks up different things from different people, and I see something that's really cool or fun, you know, and then it gets me thinking about, oh, I could do that, or I could mix that with this media, or, you know, come up with something new that might be great for sketching at the zoo, or, you know, or sometimes you work on a particular project for a company and they have a certain technique or style that they want you to do. But a lot of this has gone digital now, so I mean, it's important to know Photoshop really well, but you can see how important this is for me to crank out something pretty quickly here. I can get some great effects using this. Okay. As these clouds are drying, I'm going to let them dry a little bit, not mess with them anymore. Okay. I'm going to come in here and I could put a couple highlights. So I take some of the brightest whites that I have in here. And one thing I'm going to do is I have these window panes in here. I'm going to come in here and put a little streak going across. So let me see if I can zoom in here to show you what I'm about to do. Okay. Sorry, hit my camera there. So I'm going to come in here and just sort of, and the problem is it's a little too watery, so let me put some fresh opaque paint on the side here. Come on, my paint thing's a little jammed. I need to get a nail and put it in there. Okay, got a little bit of paint there. Gonna hit a little bit of that white. See if I can come in here Put a little bit of a highlight across part of that window. Tap it and fade it in there a little bit. Same thing here. A little streak. Blend some of that in a little bit. It's a little bit harder to see. And then I can also come in and just hit some highlights on different parts of my roof here. I'm going to come in here and put a couple highlights on the edges to pop the roof line a little bit here. Some of the sides of the building right here. Okay. Oops. All right, and let me zoom back out. Okay, it's feeling pretty cool for a nice little, quick little concept piece. I'm going to come in and touch up a couple of my clouds on the top here. Fade that in a little bit. And what I'm going to do real fast is take my 20 and my 40 and see if I can't punch my clouds up just a little bit on the side here. So I'm going to have some darks against light here, so I'm going to take my 40, pencil it in here in a couple places, and once I get it in like that, I'm going to take my 20 and sort of bleed it in a little. Get some nice little dark to light variations on the cloud in there. That's pretty cool, I like that. Okay. There we go. And put my caps back on. Leave it alone. And then I think I wanted to, I was making this decision to really pop some of this. I want to darken my roof line. So I think I'm going to come in with a 40 and darken these tiles. And with those highlights on the side, it'll really help pop the roof a little bit more. That's usually what some people jump right into markers and go right for some of that pop, but I tend to wait a little bit to the very end. Got a bunch of roof parts on this. Having those darks on there starts to pop some of this a little bit more. Okay. And so every time I go over that, it darkens it up a little bit, right? So what I can do is in a couple areas, like on a couple corners here, I'm going to take a 60 and come along the edge just a little bit here, just to punch it up a little bit more. Okay, get some nice values blended into that 40 in there. That's pretty cool. I like that. That 60 really starts to work well. I'm going to come in here and punch a little bit of the metal. And then I'm going to punch in on that cloud right there where I sort of want the eye to look. And take that and my 40, and as I punch in a couple little bit of darks there, I'm going to blend them in a little bit like this. Seeing that really right there. I don't want to spread it too much over here. I might put a dot or two. But I really want that cloud to feel right in here, right behind. This is my center of interest right here. So I want to really punch some of this right in here with this 60. Yeah, that's pretty cool. And blend that a little with the 40. Like that. Okay. See, and that you start to get a really nice effect there. Your eye sort of stays focused right in that little area. And remember what I was telling you, what I'm going to have to do here in a minute is let these markers dry a little bit because the values will change. So that 60 will thin down a little bit as I let it dry. So I want to make sure I address that as it blends and soaks itself into the paper. Okay, cool. Oh, I forgot to get the back of this root. Got the little cloth overhang thing here. Okay, cool. So I think that's it. I'm going to keep noodling this thing to death, and I don't want to. I was supposed to stop a while ago, but just having fun. So I think I might come in and, again, punch in. I have my brush here still, and I can come in here and punch in just a couple highlights on the edge of the roof there. Okay, so it really pops. The brush is starting to dry already. There, little edge lines on the roof there. Little line there. I know some people that sometimes they use there's like watercolor whites you can use, and I prefer just a base opaque wash. I think works really good. Okay. Trying to get a couple little cool highlights in there. Just to create a little bit of pop and see what happens. I want to hit a little bit of the stones there too. Make those pop out a little. And I think that's it. Some of these down here I left white, so I'm just going to leave it alone. Okay, so that's it. Like my little clouds in there. I think I'm going to leave it alone, and I'm going to walk away and see if I can't jump into another piece here for you guys. I forgot to put a little roof edging detail on here. Let me jump in and do that real quick. Just put a couple of tiles in there real fast. Okay, so that's one of my first demos for you, using some markers real quick. Okay.